A total volume of 3.46 billion naira or transactions valued at 356.47 trillion naira were recorded in the fourth quarter of 2020 as data on electronic payment channels in the Nigerian banking sector. The National Bureau of Statistics disclosed this in its report on selected banking sector data, sectoral breakdown of credit payments and staff strength. According to the report, online transfers dominated the volume of transactions recorded, with 2.3 billion volume of transactions valued at 120.27 trillion naira recorded in quarter 4 of 2020. In terms of credit to the private sector, the total value of credit allocated by the bank stood at 20.37 trillion naira as of quarter 4 of 2020. Oil and gas and manufacturing sectors got credit allocation of 3.93 trillion naira and 3.19 trillion naira to record the highest credit allocation as of the period under review. As of Q4 2020, the total number of bank staff decreased by 0.90% quarter on quarter from 95,888 in quarter 3 2020 to 95,026. In seeking to implement the directive of President Muhammadu Buhari to stop further allocation of foreign reserves to food importers, the Central Bank of Nigeria has added fertilizer, maize, wheat to its Forex restriction list and is currently planning to add sugar. According to the Apex Bank, the decision to discourage food importation is aimed at making Nigeria self-sufficient in food production, create massive employment, and conserve foreign exchange that has become scarce in recent years. Given the downward pressure on Naira as a result of the steep decline in foreign currency revenue occurring to the government from petroleum, the CBN has taken a series of measures aimed at addressing the issues, and this initiative it believes will help government save foreign exchange and encourage local production, which in turn will boost the Naira. At a time of rising food inflation and uncertainties confronting the country's fragile economy, the question begging for answer is, what will be the impact of this policy on the Naira and, of course, the entire business community? Joining me live from our Abuja studios is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Dignity Finance and Investments, Dr. Chijoke Ikechukwu. Thank you very much for your time, Dr. Ikechukwu. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure.
Yes, I want to start this way. Everyone will say the central bank means well, trying to conserve foreign exchange to at least enable us, maybe strengthening the Naira to a level. But some other business people are crying on the other side that some of these policies, particularly regards to Forex restriction, is killing their businesses. How does this come to you?
Before we even think about including some other items in the list, we need to take a stock of the impact and effect of the 42 items on that list. The stock we're going to take is to see the impact of the inclusion of those 42 items on the list and what it has done to the currency. I want to believe that there will be two impacts. The first one is that on the side of the CBN, they're going to conserve a lot of foreign exchange, and there will be less pressure on the foreign reserve. If that happens, the volume of importation that takes place in both sugar and wheat will be reduced. So in that way, there will be more of foreign exchange to play with. But the second aspect of it is the fact that Nigeria is the second largest importer of sugar, and that's second largest after South Africa. Now, many of the things we consume today depend on sugar for raw material, and that means if this recession takes place, these factories are not going to shut down. They will rather go over to the parallel market and source for their foreign currency. Now, if the impact of this is that there will be pressure on the secondary market of foreign currency. And so if we have that impact, we are going to be having high exchange rates of foreign currency against the Naira, because production must continue. But when you look at it from the side of CBN, we will think a lot is going to be achieved. But I can tell you, most of those importers of sugar and wheat are going to run to the parallel market, and obviously are going to be transferring funds directly to the exporters. So the impact is that there will still be heavy demand for foreign currency from the parallel market, and that will shoot up the exchange rate. So I do not think the impact will be felt right now in the short run. But if there was going to be total ban on importation of these items, then there won't be any need for anybody to be going to the parallel market to source for these products, source for FS. But as far as it's only going to be a restriction on not valid for FX, then we are expecting that all the importers of these items, all the people using sugar and wheat for raw material, are going to be running to the Bureau de Change and to the parallel market. And that is actually going to worsen the exchange rates that we're already afraid of today. So that's the impact it's going to have.
Well said. Now, Dr. Chidoke, let me follow up this way. We talk about capacity here. We did this rice, trying to stop importation, bringing rice from other countries, and we still can't meet up despite the anchor borrower scheme and all of the support from the central bank. And we're doing this again. Wheat farmers have come out to say, yes, we can meet up if we improve capacity. We are spending about $6.1 billion annually to import wheat and sugar. So if we can get into the market, wheat in particular. Now, capacity is what I'm looking at. How well do you see us meet at this time where inflation is above 22% for food, and we are looking this direction? I am worried.
Yeah, let's take sugar for example. We are aware that by 2023, the Dangote sugar factory that is going to be established in Nasarawa will be operational. And when that happens, I expect that the local capacity will cover for the local demands of sugar and even have enough for export. So right now, we do not have that capacity to really meet the local demand for this particular product. So even if we say we're not going to fund it, use the foreign exchange supplied by CBN to fund it, there's going to be a little problem here, because we expect that the local capacity we have will not be able to take care of the market. When we also look at the wheat consumption of the country, the local capacity we have will not be able to meet the local demand. So I recommend that before we take that decision of including these items on the list, we should ensure that we have the local capacity, or we should have had enough growers, enough factories to be able to produce enough sugar to meet the demand of Nigerians locally. Otherwise, I can tell you it's going to increase the inflation rate that we're already running away from.
Thank you very much for that. Now, some also say the central bank had to go through some unorthodox policies, going away from conventional policies, all trying to meet up. And part of the Forex thing is one key sector, one space that the central bank has been so active. Talking about falling crude oil price, COVID-19. Some say that the central bank had not done what they did initially, even restricting the 42 items, things would have been worse. Do you think along that line?
You see, the position of CBN in the country is trying to make sure that they sustain stability. You see, except you are up there with them in CBN, you will know the kind of pressure CBN goes through in ensuring that the various monetary policy indicators do not clash the decision-making of the country and of CBN. Sometimes from outside, just like watching football match from outside the field, many spectators score many goals. many goals more than the players themselves. So as watchers from outside the field, we say so many things, but CBN sees more than we see, and we want to believe that they also have good knowledge, they also have good understanding of the system to be able to take the right decision in the interest of the country. So we should be able to trust the decision they're taking and think that they're always going to be in interest of the country.
Now, I want to ask if you think this move will also in one way spur more investment into all of these sectors that are opened, because I think when this happens, opportunities also comes in one way or the other. Do you see more investments, let's say in sugar, in wheat production? You talked about Dangote, we know of Boa, we know of all of these guys trying to play in all of this industry. Do you see more investments, particularly so that we can create jobs?
Yes, I can tell you that once we start, the CBN includes these two items on the importation restriction, a lot of people are going to be sourcing their own sugar from the local factories and industry that we have. Of course, you're going to see a lot of consumption, local consumption from Nigerians in all these factories. So I see the possibility that there will be many investors. You are going to be seeing more investors in this area, in wheat and in sugar. We're also going to be seeing a lot of jobs created, because when the demand is high, you are seeing a lot of people, a lot of companies springing up and employing more and more workers, and that is just what I see that's going to happen.
Now, in as much as I support the government, support the CBN, Nigerians do to empower farmers. We know of all of these schemes. More than 1.4 trillion naira, according to the central bank, has been invested in agriculture, various schemes in agriculture. But Dr. Chijioke, let's face the reality on ground, which we must talk about. Insecurity is something that is also worrisome. And we know that if our farms are not safe, how do we, when we project, we need to also look at this reality is on ground. So side by side, insecurity also has a role to play. What do you make of this?
No, it's not even enough to say insecurity has a role to play. Insecurity is the main bane.
Great.
And it's a major problem. The fact that we have high inflation rate today is because of insecurity of the country. The fact that economy is not doing so well today is because of insecurity. The fact that we have food insecurity today is because of the general insecurity of the country. So, in other words, the country needs to do everything within its powers to ensure that the insecurity of the country is addressed and arrested. Because if it's not arrested, a good number of things are going to be affected. The foreign direct investment we've been talking about will be affected. The exchange rate we are seeing today will just be affected, and inflation rate will be affected. So it is the main thing. I think every effort we make today as a country should be geared towards creating enough security for the country so that we can have our country back again. Right now, it looks like the thing is slipping off our hands.
Really very well. So now back to the FX market in its entirety. That defense by the central bank continues to follow that line. Now, what are the feelers? What feelers are you getting from business people accessing FX at this moment? A lot of delays with firms, and we hear a lot of things from manufacturers. What are you hearing with regards to this? How seamless has it been for manufacturers?
Yeah, two things that actually need to be done. First of all, availability of FS has to be enhanced. And the second thing has to be the exchange rate. You know, it is actually embarrassing that our exchange rate is as high as 480, 485 naira per dollar. Very embarrassing to me as a Nigerian. So we need to do everything to ensure that exchange rate starts getting down and down and down. In fact, let us even be in competition with some African countries that were supposed to be bigger than, so that we need to find out what they are doing to ensure that their own rates are minimal and reasonable. Again, availability is a problem. We need to see how we can make the foreign currency available to Nigerians who want to do international business. Once we address these two, people are going to find it easy doing business, especially importing, if other factors that have inhibited business in this country are kept constant.
Backward integration is something that we also talk about, particularly in regards to manufacturing. Sometime last week, I spoke to the DG of Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, and he talked about efforts being made. What's your assessment of our seeking in-country materials for our production? This would also help this dependence on the foreign exchange market. Do you see our people taking advantage of local content?
It is actually necessary for everybody to start looking inwards. When you see the issue of exchange rates being a hindrance to business, you have to discover that for every single raw material that you have, that you import, there's an alternative somewhere in Nigeria. If the alternative is not as good as the one you import, look for a way of making it better. So everybody has to start looking inwards, especially now that the exchange rate is so high. When the exchange rate is high, you have to assume there is no foreign country and source for everything you need to do inwards. When we do that, then you see that you're beginning to solve some of the problems. So it's not enough for any person doing international business to think, oh, now that the exchange rate is unavailable and the exchange rate is very high, then we have to cease being business people. We have to ensure that we have to start looking for other alternatives to whatever thing we do, either in manufacturing or importation or whatever thing it is. That way you see that we'll start developing the local market and local capacities, and of course we're going to start creating more jobs.
Indeed, creating more. Almost finally, the central bank also moved towards, still conserving the foreign exchange and introduced the diaspora remittance, initiative, and of course supported by the Naira for dollar, all to attract Nigerians abroad to bring in funds. This has played well in other countries. From research, I think Bangladesh and some other countries were able to do this successfully. But what would you say? What's your assessment of that and how it affects the Nigerian economy? Are we doing well with all of these moves? Are we attracting the required effects with all of these moves?
Yeah, CBN has taken a good number of decisions in order to enhance the foreign exchange market. This decision to give Naira for dollar is actually one of them. I'm a beneficiary of that. I received some foreign currency recently, and as I was about to step out of the place, they called me back that I haven't collected my Naira. I can tell you I was excited, and I collected my Naira and put it in my pocket. I considered it a bonus. So, and I know anybody wanting to receive foreign currency right now will want the money to be sent in dollar, so that, in dollar or any other foreign currency, so that they can receive Naira. So it's an incentive, just like many other incentives they have done in the various FS windows existing. So I can say kudos to them. Whether the outcome will materialize and give them the optimum outcome now or in the future is a different thing. Whether it will be sustained in the future is another thing. But right now, I think it's supposed to be an incentive that should encourage Nigerians to send more money to Nigeria. That's encouraging, and it should be working. All right,
Leon. I just hope that we are able to at least reduce this disparity between the approved rates as the CBN window and the parallel market. That disparity is what worries me, Dr. Chijioke. Honestly, it does worry me.
Yes, I think it is slightly, I'm not saying it is impossible for CBN to deal with that.
Indeed.
But the major thing that we deal with that situation is not a decision making. It has to do with availability of foreign exchange. It's availability of foreign currency that will actually merge that gap you're talking about. It has nothing to do with a decision. Even if they change the rates today to say these two rates are the same, when the parallel market does not have enough foreign currency to deal with, Of course, their price will also change, and there will be that gap again. So it has to do with availability. Until that demand and supply can deal with that scarcity, then it will be difficult to really merge the two rates.
Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer, Dignity Finance and Investment, Dr. Chijioke Ikechukwu. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate this.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure always.